When it comes to attraction, influence, and connection, few things are as powerful as the words you choose. Words are not just carriers of information, they are signals of who you are, what you value, and the energy you bring into every interaction. When a high-value woman speaks, her words are not random, they are deliberate. They create an aura of confidence, self-respect, and magnetic presence. Every syllable, every pause, every choice between two similar phrases has the power to elevate or diminish how a man perceives her. In other words, your words shape perception. They frame your reality in the eyes of the person listening, and they set the stage for the dynamics that follow. Consider this. A man does not just hear what you say, he feels it. The tone, the rhythm, and the structure of your speech communicate far more than the literal meaning of your sentences. A simple statement like, "I feel like you're distant today," can be interpreted in many ways depending on delivery. If it is said with softness and curiosity, it opens space for dialogue. If it is said with accusation or frustration, it signals insecurity or neediness. The words themselves are identical, yet the perception they create is completely different. High-value women understand this distinction intuitively. They know that perception is not about manipulation, it is about clarity and alignment with the energy they embody. High-value women also recognize that words are cumulative. Each interaction, each sentence, each offhand comment contributes to an ongoing narrative that men subconsciously absorb. A single moment of frustration or over-explaining may be forgiven, but when words consistently communicate neediness, doubt, or compromise of self-worth, the perception shifts. Men are not just hearing words, they are building an impression of your emotional landscape, your standards, and your inner value. This is why careful selection of language is not superficial, it is essential to preserving your presence, your confidence, and the respect you command. Another key principle is that words create reality. When you speak from a place of confidence and self-assurance, you reinforce that internal state. Saying, "I'm confident we'll figure this out," is different from "I hope this works out." The first statement signals certainty and calm leadership, the second signals doubt and hesitation. Men are wired to respond to certainty and strength, even if expressed subtly. Your words can either position you as someone grounded, composed, and attractive, or as someone insecure and uncertain. Every conversation, no matter how casual, becomes an opportunity to subtly communicate your value without needing to prove it through effort or chase. High-value women also use words to guide emotional tone. Instead of reacting impulsively or defensively, they choose language that maintains connection while protecting their boundaries. For example, instead of saying, "You never listen to me," they might say, "I notice sometimes my feelings aren't heard. Can we talk about this?" One communicates blame and conflict. The other communicates observation, self-respect, and an invitation for mutual understanding. Words are a tool not just for communication, but for emotional architecture. They build attraction, maintain respect, and prevent the erosion of boundaries. Furthermore, words can amplify presence. When a woman speaks with calm authority, even in mundane conversation, men feel drawn to her energy. The specificity of her language, the absence of filler words, and the careful pacing create an aura of intention. A high-value woman does not fill silence with words to avoid discomfort. She allows pauses, lets statements land, and chooses words that resonate with meaning. This is not about rigid perfection, it is about consciousness. Each phrase becomes a brushstroke in the portrait of who she is and what she embodies. It is also essential to understand that perception is relative. The same words can create attraction with one person and irritation with another, depending on alignment with their values and emotional needs. This is why high-value women do not try to please or persuade recklessly. They choose words that are authentic to themselves, knowing that authenticity itself is magnetic. Words are a reflection of inner standards and boundaries. They signal what is acceptable, what is desirable, and what is non-negotiable. When language is misaligned with self-worth, perception falters. When language mirrors self-respect, perception amplifies attraction and admiration. Subtlety is another dimension of the power of words. High-value women often say less than what is on their mind, and the impact of their words is heightened precisely because of that restraint. Men are wired to notice what is unsaid, what is implied, and what is expressed with intentional economy. Words, therefore, are not merely functional, they are psychological signals. A single, well-chosen word can spark curiosity, intimacy, or admiration. whereas an overflow of words often dilutes power. This is why mindfulness in speech is not optional, it is essential to crafting the perception you desire. Finally, the highest form of this principle is alignment. Words only have power when they align with energy, actions, and presence. Saying, "I am independent," while acting clingy creates cognitive dissonance, which men sense instinctively. Conversely, when words, actions, and energy are consistent, perception becomes reality. Men do not just hear the words, they experience the woman as a complete, coherent presence. Every phrase reinforces her value, clarity, and emotional intelligence. Words shape perception because they are the vessel through which inner reality is translated into outer experience, and when wielded consciously, they transform interactions, connections, and attraction. One of the most overlooked yet powerful principles of communication is this: what you say reflects what you focus on. High-value women understand that words are not neutral, they carry intention, energy, and emotional resonance. When you speak from fear, you unintentionally anchor the interaction in insecurity, neediness, or doubt. When you speak from desire, clarity, or conviction, you invite alignment, respect, and attraction. Men do not just listen to your words, they feel the energy behind them. Saying what you want rather than what you fear transforms every conversation from a potential minefield into a space of influence and magnetic connection. Fear is subtle, but it is detectable. Words born from fear often appear in the form of questioning, over-explaining, or self-deprecation. Phrases like, "Are you sure you want to spend time with me?" or "I hope I'm not bothering you," communicate neediness more loudly than any direct demand ever could. These words reveal an internal landscape of uncertainty, and men instinctively sense it. Fear signals lack. It signals that you are not grounded in your own value, that you are seeking validation from the other person. High-value women recognize that even subtle hints of fear erode attraction, because men are drawn to women who are emotionally sovereign, who speak from a place of inner alignment rather than external approval. Speaking what you want is the opposite. It is a language rooted in clarity, self-assuredness, and authenticity. It does not demand, it does not manipulate, it does not plead. Instead, it communicates intention with grace and confidence. For example, instead of saying, "Do you want to hang out?" a high-value woman might say, "I would love to see you tonight. I'm free after 7. The meaning is the same in terms of logistics, but the energy is completely different. One phrase communicates uncertainty and potential rejection. The other communicates choice, availability, and confidence. The words themselves shape the perception of your inner world. When you express what you want, you are signaling that you are in control of your life, that your desires are valid, and that you are not defined by someone else's approval. The difference between fear and desire in speech is not just semantic, it is emotional. When words are rooted in fear, they carry tension, hesitation, and sometimes desperation. Men instinctively pick up on these vibrations. They do not need to consciously analyze your speech, they feel the energy underneath it. When words are rooted in desire, they carry calm, certainty, and presence. They draw attention naturally, without force, because they are aligned with self-respect. High-value women cultivate this awareness. They notice when their language unconsciously drifts toward fear, and they consciously redirect it toward what they truly want. Another key point is that fear-based speech often limits opportunities. When you frame interactions around avoidance or worry, you create boundaries that are invisible but restrictive. Saying, "I don't want to bother you," can prevent a connection from deepening, even when the other person is genuinely interested. Conversely, expressing wants in a clear, grounded way creates opportunities for connection, mutual understanding, and emotional engagement. Men are more likely to respond positively to someone who communicates desire rather than someone who communicates doubt. Words aligned with desire create movement in relationships. Words rooted in fear create stagnation. High-value women also recognize that what they want is often connected to their boundaries, standards, and authentic self. Speaking from desire is not about being aggressive or demanding. It is about expressing preferences, needs, and intentions with clarity. For example, instead of saying, "I hope you don't mind if I choose this," a high-value woman might say, "I prefer we do it this way." The shift in language is subtle, yet the perception it creates is profound. The first statement communicates insecurity and lack of authority over one's own choices. The second communicates self-respect and emotional sovereignty. Words, therefore, are a direct reflection of your internal hierarchy. Do you place your own desires at the center, or do you allow fear of rejection to dictate your language? Silence and pacing also amplify this principle. Speaking what you want does not mean speaking excessively. High-value women are careful not to overstate or over-explain. They understand that words have gravity and that each phrase should carry intention. When expressing desire, even a brief, well-placed statement can have more impact than pages of nervous justification. Fear, on the other hand, often manifests in over-communication, filler words, or repeated questioning, all of which dilute attraction. Men subconsciously respond to the weight of words. When a woman speaks with clarity, precision, and desire, her presence is elevated. When she speaks from fear, she becomes less anchored, less magnetic, and less compelling. Another important aspect is emotional accountability. Saying what you want involves taking responsibility for your own feelings and intentions rather than outsourcing them to another person's response. Fear-based language often shifts responsibility outward. If you don't text me back, I'll be hurt, or I'm worried you'll think I'm annoying. Desire-based language is internally anchored. I would love to see you tonight, or I feel excited about spending time together. The distinction is subtle, yet men sense it immediately. Words rooted in desire signal emotional independence. Words rooted in fear signal emotional dependence. Finally, consistency matters. High-value women align their words with actions. Saying what you want is meaningless if your actions contradict it. Men perceive alignment at a subconscious level. Words alone are not enough. They must reflect inner truth and external behavior. Fear-based words that are inconsistent with presence, standards, or energy will be detected instantly, eroding credibility and attraction. Desire-based words consistently expressed reinforce perception, build trust, and amplify magnetic energy. One of the most distinguishing qualities of high-value women is the ability to communicate without over-explaining, over-justifying, or seeking approval. Confidence over explanation is not arrogance, it is clarity, self-assurance, and emotional sovereignty expressed through language. High-value women understand that the need to explain often stems from insecurity, the fear of being misunderstood, or the desire to control how others perceive them. Every extra word meant to justify a choice or opinion subtly undermines presence, and men instinctively detect this imbalance. Confidence, on the other hand, is magnetic. It requires no defense, no justification, and no explanation. It simply exists, and it shapes perception effortlessly. Over-explaining is an unconscious signal of doubt. Phrases like, "I only did that because I thought it might help you," or "I wasn't sure if you'd like it, but," are attempts to anticipate judgment and control outcomes. They are born from a subtle lack of trust in your own choices, and men feel that insecurity immediately. High-value women recognize that explanations, when unnecessary, reduce the weight of their presence. Words are powerful, and every additional justification dilutes the impact of the original statement. Confidence does not require reasoning. It requires faith in your own decisions, your own energy, and your own value. When a woman communicates confidently without explanation, she signals that she is grounded, self-assured, and unshakable in her inner authority. There is a profound difference between explanation and clarity. High-value women do not leave others confused. They are clear, concise, and intentional in their communication. But clarity is not the same as over-explaining. To clarify is to provide necessary context. To over-explain is to seek validation. A confident woman might say, "I'm going to the art exhibit on Friday. I'd love for you to join if you're free," and leave it at that. She does not feel compelled to justify why she chose Friday, why she enjoys art, or why he should care. The statement communicates intention and invites connection without neediness. The words carry authority because they are rooted in internal alignment, not in the hope of approval. Men respond to this confidence instinctively because it signals emotional independence and self-possession. Another key element is the power of pauses and silence. High-value women understand that every word carries weight. They do not fill space with justifications or explanations. Silence allows words to resonate, allowing perception to form naturally. Over-explaining often stems from discomfort with silence, the fear that if a statement is left unexpanded, it may be misunderstood or rejected. In truth, men interpret calmness and restraint as strength. Confidence over explanation leverages the subtlety of unspoken energy. A simple statement, delivered with presence and without defensive elaboration, carries far more influence than a long-winded rationale. Confidence over explanation also protects boundaries. When a woman constantly feels the need to justify her choices, it signals malleability and openness to being swayed by external judgment. High-value women maintain their boundaries through concise, assertive communication. They might say, "I'm not available tonight," and stop there. No excuses, no reasons, no negotiation. The clarity of the statement communicates respect for self and sets the tone for how others are allowed to engage. Words that are rooted in explanation dilute boundaries. Words rooted in confidence strengthen them. Men are naturally drawn to women who operate from firm, unshakable boundaries because it signals integrity, self-respect, and emotional intelligence. This principle extends beyond direct requests or invitations. It applies to opinions, emotions, and personal choices. For instance, expressing preference or disagreement does not require dissertation. Saying, "I prefer a quiet evening," or "I disagree and here's my perspective," is enough. There is no need to anticipate objections, justify reasoning excessively, or soften the impact out of fear. High-value women understand that men are attracted not to compliance but to authenticity and self-possession. Confidence communicates a sense of completeness. Over-explaining communicates incompleteness. Every word spoken in confidence reinforces the perception that a woman is secure in herself, independent of validation. Another subtle aspect is the alignment of words with energy. Confidence over explanation is not about rigid precision, it is about coherence. Men sense when words match energy and intention. Over-explaining often arises from a mismatch between inner certainty and outer expression. A woman may feel confident internally but express hesitation through unnecessary elaboration. High-value women cultivate alignment between what they feel, what they think, and what they say. This alignment ensures that words carry the weight of truth and authenticity, amplifying attraction naturally. Furthermore, confidence over explanation fosters respect. When a woman speaks concisely, assertively, and without apology, she commands attention without demanding it. Men instinctively respect communication that is grounded in self-assurance because it signals that she values her own time, energy, and perspective. The more she justifies, rationalizes, or seeks approval, the more perception shifts toward insecurity. Conversely, confident speech communicates mastery over oneself and influence over the interaction, creating subtle but powerful magnetism. High-value women also recognize that confidence in speech is not about controlling perception, it is about embracing it. They understand that not everyone will agree or approve, and that is irrelevant to the integrity of their expression. Over-explaining often arises from fear of disapproval, rejection, or misinterpretation. Confidence, however, releases the need for external validation. Words become an extension of inner authority, not a tool to manage outcomes. Men are drawn to this kind of presence because it signals authenticity, stability, and emotional sovereignty. Finally, confidence over explanation encourages efficient emotional communication. Words are not wasted, they carry meaning, intention, and impact. A woman who over-explains may dilute her emotional signals, leaving men unsure of her boundaries, desires, or priorities. A woman who speaks with confidence conveys her inner state clearly, allowing perception to form without confusion or distortion. This clarity enhances attraction, strengthens boundaries, and establishes an energetic hierarchy that is naturally magnetic. One of the most subtle yet powerful distinctions in communication is the difference between curiosity and interrogation. High-value women understand that the way they ask questions can either draw a man closer or push him away. Curiosity is magnetic. It invites connection, exploration, and engagement. Interrogation, on the other hand, triggers defensiveness, resistance, and withdrawal. Words, tone, and intention combine to create a perception of energy, and men sense instinctively whether a question comes from genuine interest or from doubt, suspicion, or neediness. Curiosity is a skill, a conscious choice to engage without controlling, to explore without probing, and to connect without compromising one's own standards. Interrogation often appears deceptively innocent. Simple questions can carry hidden judgment or insecurity. Asking, "Why didn't you text me back sooner?" may seem like a neutral inquiry, but the energy behind it communicates expectation, blame, and pressure. Even if phrased politely, the subtext signals doubt and anxiety, and men feel it immediately. Curiosity, in contrast, is about observation, interest, and presence. Asking, "I noticed you were busy yesterday, how was your day?" communicates attentiveness without judgment. The words themselves are almost identical, yet the perception created is completely different. High-value women are acutely aware of this difference, and they use language to cultivate engagement rather than defensiveness. The energy behind the question is more important than the question itself. Curiosity comes from a place of calm interest and openness. It is not an attempt to control the other person's response or to extract validation. Interrogation is often born from insecurity, jealousy, or fear. The more a woman tries to figure out a man through repeated questioning, the more she communicates a lack of trust in herself, in him, or in the relationship. Men are wired to respond to energy first and words second. When curiosity is genuine, it draws them in naturally. When interrogation is detected, it repels, creating subtle resistance even if he cannot articulate why. High-value women also understand that curiosity is an invitation rather than a demand. The phrasing of questions, tone, and timing all contribute to perception. A question delivered with relaxed confidence signals that the woman is interested but not dependent. For example, "I'm curious what you think about this," positions the woman as engaged, thoughtful, and interested in his perspective without pressure. It invites him to share, not to perform or justify. Interrogation, in contrast, demands answers, seeks control, and signals insecurity. Subtle shifts in phrasing and delivery create a profound difference in attraction and engagement. Another element is the balance between listening and speaking. Curiosity is rooted in genuine attention. High-value women listen not just to respond, but to understand, to feel the energy behind words, and to observe emotional nuance. Interrogation is transactional. It focuses on extracting information to satisfy fear, doubt, or the desire to predict behavior. The difference is visible in body language, tone, and timing. Men sense when they are truly heard versus when they are being examined. Curiosity creates space for connection. Interrogation creates pressure, tension, and subtle withdrawal. Curiosity also communicates intelligence, emotional awareness, and depth. High-value women use questions strategically to explore thoughts, feelings, and experiences without implying judgment or insecurity. Asking, "What inspired you to make that choice?" or "How did that feel for you?" communicates interest, attentiveness, and emotional intelligence. It allows men to feel seen, understood, and appreciated. Interrogation, however, often centers on outcomes or behaviors rather than experience, reducing the interaction to a form of evaluation rather than a space for connection. The way a woman frames questions signals her own emotional maturity and the level of respect she holds for the other person. Subtlety is key. Curiosity is often understated. It does not demand constant disclosure. High-value women recognize that too many questions, or questions asked too frequently, create pressure. Even when curiosity is genuine, timing, frequency, and delivery matter. Interrogation, by contrast, arises from compulsion, the need to know, to control, or to predict. Men respond positively to curiosity because it communicates openness and trust, not because it seeks to manage their actions or emotions. Words, tone, and presence combine to communicate the difference between invitation and pressure. Curiosity also reinforces attraction by maintaining mystery. High-value women are aware that part of magnetic energy is the balance between revelation and restraint. Asking questions from curiosity allows a man to share, explore, and feel the flow of connection while preserving her own inner world. Interrogation, in contrast, risks overexposure or emotional demand, signaling anxiety or need. The subtle energy behind curiosity is a signal of confidence and independence. It communicates, "I am interested in you and I also value myself." This alignment between energy, words, and intent enhances perception, deepens connection, and amplifies magnetism naturally. Finally, high-value women understand that curiosity is a tool for engagement, not control. Men sense instinctively when a woman is seeking insight to manipulate or predict behavior versus when she is seeking understanding to connect. Words spoken with curiosity carry warmth, intelligence, and genuine interest, while words spoken in interrogation carry subtle tension, judgment, or expectation. The energy behind the question is a reflection of internal alignment. Fear-based language produces pressure and resistance. Desire-based language produces engagement and intrigue. Every phrase, pause, and intonation contributes to perception, shaping attraction, emotional resonance, and the flow of the relationship. One of the most magnetic qualities a high-value woman can cultivate is the balance between playfulness and mystery. Playfulness draws people in, creating lightness, joy, and attraction. Mystery sustains their interest, creating intrigue and emotional pull. Together, these qualities create an energy that is both irresistible and unattainable at the same time. Men are naturally drawn to women who radiate fun without neediness, who laugh without undermining themselves, and who reveal enough to connect but leave enough unsaid to maintain curiosity. This delicate balance is not accidental. It is cultivated through conscious awareness of words, energy, and presence. Playfulness begins with the energy behind words. It is not about joking incessantly or being frivolous. It is about creating a sense of lightness and joy in interaction. High-value women use humor, subtle teasing, and clever phrasing to signal charm and intelligence. A well-placed comment, a playful challenge, or a hint of irony communicates that she is comfortable in her own skin and does not take herself too seriously. Playfulness signals confidence because it demonstrates emotional freedom, the ability to engage without fear of judgment, the ability to laugh at oneself, and the ability to create enjoyable experiences for both people. Words that carry levity, when paired with grounded presence, are magnetic because they make others feel good in her company. Mystery, on the other hand, is rooted in restraint and intentionality. It is the art of not revealing everything at once, of allowing intrigue to build naturally. High-value women understand that mystery is not about withholding information manipulatively. It is about preserving their energy, maintaining autonomy, and allowing the other person to explore rather than predict. For example, when sharing about personal experiences, she might offer insights in a way that invites questions and curiosity rather than exhausting detail. Mystery signals independence, emotional depth, and inner richness, all qualities that heighten attraction. Men are wired to notice gaps, to be intrigued by what is unsaid, and to invest emotionally in uncovering layers. Mystery transforms ordinary interactions into compelling exchanges that are both engaging and memorable. Playfulness and mystery work together synergistically. Playfulness creates warmth, approachability, and enjoyment, while mystery creates depth, allure, and anticipation. A woman who is playful without mystery risks being seen as superficial. A woman who is mysterious without play risks being perceived as cold or inaccessible. High-value women understand this balance intuitively. They allow themselves to be expressive and fun, yet they protect their inner world, maintaining a sense of intrigue that keeps others invested. The combination of these energies creates a magnetic tension, a push and pull that sustains interest, encourages connection, and deepens attraction over time. Language plays a crucial role in this dynamic. High-value women choose words that convey interest without desperation, that invite engagement without overexposure. A playful comment might be delivered as a light tease, a clever observation, or a subtle joke that sparks curiosity. For instance, saying, "I'll let you guess what I did this weekend, but I doubt you'll get it right," communicates fun and invites interaction while preserving a layer of mystery. The words themselves create a sense of emotional movement. The listener is drawn in, engaged, and intrigued simultaneously. In contrast, a stream of over-sharing or self-deprecation diminishes both playfulness and mystery, reducing perception of value. Tone and body language amplify the effect of words. Playfulness is expressed not just in what is said, but how it is said through laughter, inflection, smiles, and subtle gestures that signal warmth and confidence. Mystery is expressed in restraint, calmness, and timing, the pauses between statements, the choice not to answer every question, the subtle eye contact that hints at depth without revealing all. Words combined with presence create a multidimensional communication that transcends verbal meaning. Men respond instinctively to this energy. They feel the emotional tone before they process the words, which is why playfulness and mystery are more about energy than content. Another important aspect is the use of curiosity within playfulness. High-value women often embed subtle challenges or questions within playful language. This technique keeps men engaged mentally and emotionally. For example, a playful remark like, "I wonder if you're brave enough to try this with me," is light-hearted on the surface but carries intrigue and challenge underneath. It invites participation without pressure, creates tension that is exciting rather than stressful, and reinforces the woman's value as someone who is confident, independent, and interesting. Interactions like this build attraction naturally because they combine enjoyment, engagement, and emotional investment in a seamless flow. Playfulness and mystery also communicate self-possession. A woman who can laugh, tease, and engage while maintaining a sense of autonomy demonstrates that her worth is internal, not dependent on approval or validation. She is available for connection without being needy, present without being predictable. Mystery protects her energy, while playfulness signals her emotional flexibility. Together, they create a presence that is both approachable and formidable, inviting connection while preserving independence. Men are drawn to this combination because it signals a partner who is vibrant, self-respecting, and emotionally intelligent. Timing, again, is critical. High-value women know when to share, when to pause, and when to withdraw slightly. Playfulness without pause can become tiring or superficial. Mystery without engagement can feel distant or cold. The art lies in rhythm, the ebb and flow of openness and restraint, humor and intrigue, connection and challenge. Language, tone, and presence are orchestrated carefully so that each interaction leaves a lasting impression, sparking interest without overwhelming, creating depth without rigidity, and building attraction without manipulation. Finally, playfulness and mystery are not only tools for attraction, they are expressions of inner freedom. High-value women understand that their energy, curiosity, and joy are their own to cultivate. Words become a reflection of that inner state, and interactions are an extension of presence rather than a performance for approval. Playfulness invites laughter and shared experience. Mystery invites exploration and investment. Together, they form a dynamic communication style that elevates perception, strengthens magnetism, and enhances the emotional resonance of every encounter. Boundaries are one of the most essential yet subtle aspects of attraction, respect, and emotional alignment, and high-value women understand that they are communicated not only through actions, but through language. Words have the power to define limits, establish standards, and signal what is acceptable and what is not, long before any conflict arises. A woman who articulates boundaries effectively is not controlling, aggressive, or rigid. She is clear, confident, and self-respecting. Language becomes the bridge between inner standards and external perception, ensuring that men understand her value, priorities, and expectations without ambiguity. The first principle of boundaries through language is clarity. High-value women do not rely on hints, passive comments, or hope that their preferences will be understood implicitly. They speak in a way that communicates intention, limits, and expectations clearly. For example, instead of saying, "I guess it's fine if you cancel again," which communicates resignation and potential tolerance for disrespect, she might say, "I plan my time carefully, so I need commitments that are reliable." The words convey respect for herself and set the expectation without hostility or blame. Men respond instinctively to clarity because it signals emotional maturity, self-possession, and decisiveness. Another principle is calmness. Boundaries do not need to be delivered with tension, frustration, or defensiveness to be effective. In fact, emotional reactivity often undermines authority. High-value women communicate limits in a composed, matter-of-fact manner. Language that carries calm confidence signals that the boundary is non-negotiable, not because it is being demanded, but because it is aligned with inner standards. For example, saying, "I'm unavailable tonight, let's reschedule for another day," conveys firmness while maintaining warmth and respect. The words themselves, when delivered with controlled energy, create perception of strength, self-respect, and emotional stability. High-value women also understand the importance of specificity in language. Vague statements often leave space for misinterpretation or testing. Specific boundaries communicated through precise language reduce ambiguity and reinforce perception. Instead of saying, "I don't like that," a high-value woman might say, "I prefer we avoid conversations about ex-partners when we are together." The specificity communicates not only the boundary, but also an expectation for mutual respect. Words become a framework through which interactions are structured, and men internalize these limits without feeling controlled. They understand that the boundary is a reflection of personal standards rather than an attempt at manipulation. Language also communicates boundaries proactively rather than reactively. High-value women recognize that waiting until frustration or resentment builds to set limits signals inconsistency and emotional volatility. Instead, they establish expectations and standards through normal conversation and interaction. Statements like, "I value honesty and consistency in communication, so I prioritize direct conversations," signal internal values while subtly guiding behavior. This proactive use of language positions boundaries as a natural part of the interaction, rather than a reaction to misalignment or disrespect. Men respond positively to boundaries communicated this way because they reflect integrity, foresight, and emotional intelligence. Tone and choice of words are equally critical. Boundaries expressed with aggression, sarcasm, or accusation may provoke resistance, defensiveness, or conflict. High-value women, however, use neutral, assertive, and respectful language to communicate their limits. Phrases such as, "I'm not comfortable discussing that topic right now," or "I need time to think before responding," communicate needs clearly while maintaining composure and dignity. Words combined with steady tone create a perception of authority and reliability. Men sense that these boundaries are non-negotiable, not as threats, but as natural extensions of a woman who respects herself and her time. High-value women also understand that boundaries are a reflection of priorities and self-worth. When expressed through language, they communicate internal standards without demanding compliance. Saying, "I dedicate weekends to personal growth and reflection, so I won't be available for late-night texts," communicates a boundary while reinforcing independence and purpose. Language becomes a tool for transmitting identity. It signals who the woman is, what she values, and the respect she expects without needing to justify or rationalize. Men perceive boundaries framed this way as attractive because they demonstrate confidence, autonomy, and consistency. Subtlety is another dimension of boundaries through language. High-value women do not always announce limits explicitly. Sometimes boundaries are implied through phrasing, tone, or context. For instance, casually stating, "I usually like to plan a few days ahead," communicates expectations for scheduling and reliability without confrontation. Subtlety preserves emotional harmony while reinforcing standards. Men notice these cues instinctively. They feel the energy behind the words and adjust their behavior accordingly. Boundaries communicated subtly through language often feel less like rules and more like guidance aligned with mutual respect. Finally, consistency is the ultimate reinforcement of boundaries through language. Words alone cannot establish respect if they are inconsistent with actions, presence, and behavior. High-value women ensure that language aligns with energy, choices, and priorities. If she says, "I don't respond to late-night texts during the week," she honors that boundary consistently. Inconsistency in language or action undermines authority, reduces perception of value, and diminishes attraction. When language, energy, and behavior are aligned, boundaries become effortless. They are perceived as natural extensions of self-respect rather than enforced rules. Language is not just a tool for communication, it is a reflection of inner authority. High-value women use words to protect their emotional space, guide interactions, and cultivate respect without aggression. Every phrase, every pause, and every choice of words communicates standards, priorities, and self-possession. Boundaries conveyed through language create a framework for interaction that is attractive, magnetic, and sustainable. Men respond to this clarity instinctively. They sense confidence, respect, and emotional intelligence, which fosters both trust and desire